LiberalViewer presents.
So welcome to the May 1st edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. I've picked out 34 of the weekend's best, most newsworthy clips for what should be a really informative, educational, fair use media criticism and political analysis show for you all tonight. As usual, my clips come mostly from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States. You can see the 3 topics I'm covering listed down in the video description, and if you're watching this as a recorded show, I'll put time indexes down there so you can skip to the next topic if you get bored, or skip back to the beginning if you want to watch it over again for some reason. There's also a link down there to this clip list I use for the 34 clips. If you want to know what's going on clip by clip and what to expect, and you can understand what I've written here, this is what I use to follow along on the show. If you look down in the video description, you'll see the 3 main topics are the media, the Republican side of the 2016 presidential race, and then the Democratic side of the 2016 presidential race. And I'll cover each of those. The media, there are only a few clips. I think there are about 20 clips on the Republican side, and then there are like 10 or so clips on the Democratic side. There are 6 clips of Donald Trump, 9 clips of Ted Cruz, 9 clips of Hillary Clinton, and then 2 clips of Bernie Sanders at the end. They all did interviews. Ted Cruz did interviews on all 5 of the programs. Donald Trump did 1, Bernie Sanders did 1, Hillary Clinton did 1, so that's what you can look for. I'm not going to have anything from the White House Correspondents' Dinner, or there'll be some brief mentions in some of the news coverage, but I already did this morning a clip roundup for the White House Correspondents' Dinner. My top 17 clips, the best, I think 8 jokes from Barack Obama and 9 jokes from Larry Wilmore. So, there's a link down to that in the video description under the media topic, because that's part of, since it was the White House Correspondents' Dinner, that's one of the things that put the topic of media on the agenda, although it's actually something that Bill Maher covered with his panel. So that's the first topic I'm going to cover, is the media. And Bill Maher discussed the media with Rob Reiner, and they talked about how news has really gone into this need for profit making, and how that's really hurt the news business. Something I've discussed, especially in terms of that fight I had with CBS over the Republican candidate debates from last February. But I'll talk about that a little more after you watch that clip over here.
It's a reality show. I mean, we are in the Kardashianization of America right now, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you got a guy who's a famous guy, so just put him out there and whatever he says. The media only cares about him. Listen, I mean, he's gold for you guys. You can do a whole monologue with him, but it's.
But I'm not a news channel. I mean,
no, you're not. That's what I'm saying.
If we're going to talk about the
your
media,
entertainment. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, like MSNBC, which I normally like as a channel, but they spend all day long telling you how stupid Donald Trump is and how he shouldn't be president, except when he's speaking.
Right.
And then they have to show you every word like he's the emperor.
I was at my hotel.
It is disgusting.
Because it's money. It's all about money.
I've said this before. People say we got to get the money out of politics. We got to get the money out of the news.
News, yeah.
Well,
absolutely. Absolutely. It started in the late 60s, when 60 Minutes came on the air, and they realized that there could be a profit center in news. All of a sudden, it slowly has evolved to this, where it's just show business.
But it's the print journalists, too, which aren't profitable. They are obsessed. I see them after these debates in the spin room. And I said to Juan, I mean, they're 6 deep, Bill, waiting to see Donald Trump, who was just on the debate stage, even when there were 15 other candidates. And I said to Juan, didn't you win a Pulitzer Prize? Like, don't you at least feel a little cheap for yourself that you're in a line 5 deep to see Donald Trump, who you just saw on the debate stage, with 15 other candidates?
Yes, the answer, well, first of all, as a print journalist, I can actually, I'm in favor of more money being pumped into print journalism, and specifically me. But I would say, look, I got into my hotel a few hours ago. I turned on MSNBC. It was a big breaking news thing. I'm like, oh, was there like an earthquake or a shooting or something? No, Donald Trump had arrived in San Francisco. That is breaking news by these standards. So, look, I mean, I think I don't think we need to get the money out of the media that much. I think we need to get the idiocy out of the media. Thanks, Ray.
Oh,
that's really.
Because you need
that's actually,
Dinner better be better
Sonny wanted more money, so I
got a whole dinner.
You got a dinner out of this?
Let me just say what.
You can take it. Yeah.
I took it back.
I'm not touching that.
So, yeah, I thought that was an interesting discussion. It kind of follows up on some of the discussions and clips I've shown from real time in the last several weeks, especially in regards to the CBS debate. And when I talked about the copyright fight with CBS, I talked about some comments from the president of CBS, Les Moonves, when he was talking about how they're raking in the money from the CBS debates. And that's actually something that Ted Cruz asked Chuck Todd about on NBC's Meet the Press, I think in one of the clips I picked out. I hope I picked out that clip this morning about why it is there aren't any more Republican debates, even though the networks were making all this money from it. And there is kind of a conflict of interest to some extent when they're trying to maximize profit over quality. And I don't think money has to be completely out of the news business, but I think when it's all based on ratings and trying to have like really big hits in that play to the lowest common denominator, I think that is a problem. I do remember back in the days that Rob Reiner was talking about when their journalism was a lot higher quality. And at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last night, both Barack Obama and Larry Wilmore spent a significant amount of time making fun of the media. MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News all got jokes, and I recommend, and I actually saw some of the live comments during the show here, that someone was saying that my White House Correspondents' Dinner clip roundup was worth watching, or maybe it was the White House Correspondents' Dinner that was worth watching. I couldn't exactly tell in the quick look I took, but you'll see I showed several clips of them taking on the media. But even though the shows this morning talked about the White House Correspondents' Dinner, they talked almost not at all about Larry Wilmore and how he really went after some of the people in the room and got like a negative reaction from them. Although I will show one or two clips that refer to Larry Wilmore. And Jake Tapper over on CNN State of the Union, he started off the State of the Union. Every show he starts off, what's the State of the Union this week? And he, it's usually something having to do with the political race. Well, this week, you'll see at the beginning of this clip, he says the State of the Union is hung over because he was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and Barack Obama specifically made a joke about him, like that he's like left journalism for CNN, something like that. And you'll see Jake Tapper only briefly mentions that, saying that President Obama went after the media, including CNN, never mentioned that he was personally burnt by the president. And I don't know whether you think he has a journalistic duty to inform the viewers about that, since he's reporting on the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And then they play a few clips in this introduction you'll see from the very beginning of the CNN program State of the Union this morning over here.
Hello, I'm Jake Tapper in Washington, where the state of our union is a bit hungover. This town's biggest party, the White House Correspondents Association dinner, which critics find an appalling self-congratulatory symbol of all that is wrong with Washington, stretched into the wee hours of the morning, and President Obama seemed to relish his final year at the podium, cracking jokes at the expense of the media, including CNN, Congress, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and of course, Donald Trump.
I'm a little hurt that he's not here tonight. We had so much fun the last time. And it is surprising. You got a room full of reporters, celebrities, cameras, and he says no. Is this dinner too tacky for the Donald? What could he possibly be doing instead? Is he at home eating a Trump steak? Tweeting out insults to Angela Merkel? What's he doing?
The president also anticipated what that dinner might look like in 2017.
Next year at this time, someone else will be standing here in this very spot, and it's anyone's guess who she will be. But
a general election matchup between Hillary Clinton and Donald.
I'm actually going to show that subsequent clip in just a few minutes, but I wanted to show that because in this little 3-clip topic about the media, because I thought that Jake Tapper, after being called out for not being very journalistic by the president at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last night, didn't really fulfill his journalistic duty when reporting on the dinner by saying that he got called out by the president. I think that kind of gives insight to the viewers into where you're coming from for people who didn't watch the dinner. And by the way, if you go and you watch my White House Correspondents' Dinner clip roundup, you'll see the last clip I showed was Larry Wilmore's ending, where he used the so-called N-word, and after saying something, really uplifting about President Obama being the first black president, and Juan Williams really took exception to that on Fox News Sunday in a way that I thought was kind of overboard. And I normally don't show the pundit clips, but I wanted to show this one. It's pretty brief. It's only 38 seconds. Juan Williams saying negative things about the ending of Larry Wilmore's set at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, as I will discuss after you watch that here.
But I think the disappointing part was the comedian Larry Wilmore. Obama at the end, he drops the mic, right? Well, Wilmore just dropped into the most scurrilous kind of language and racial language. After praising the president as the first black man, leader of the free world, he uses the N-word and talks about my N-word. It was so awful. It was embarrassing to America. But I think to black people, to black America, it was awful. It was degrading and suggested somehow that this president is only to be judged in that manner. I was so disappointed because I was hoping for Larry Wilmore to knock the ball out the park.
Carl, you were a top.
So that was Juan Williams' reaction. I thought it was overboard. I do think the way Larry Wilmore ended his set was somewhat controversial. It was definitely pushing the envelope for the venue, but I wasn't offended, or as certainly not as offended as Juan Williams. So I wanted to show that, and I don't know exactly why Larry Wilmore got almost no coverage on the 5 Sunday morning shows, but I just wanted to show that Juan Williams clip to criticize it, and then also as a way to point out that it is one of the rare exceptions to the general rule that they talked about how great Barack Obama was at his last White House Correspondents' Dinner, but didn't really mention Larry Wilmore very much at all. So I now want to move on to the next topic. It's the Republican side of the 2016 presidential race. As I said, I think I have 6 clips of Donald Trump, followed by 9 clips of Ted Cruz. But before I put you through all of that and a couple news reports along the way, I want to start off softening the blow a little with a couple political comedy clips from HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher. These are both monologue jokes that Bill Maher made last Friday. And this first one, I did, as I predicted last week when I mentioned that Bill Maher had made a sexist joke about Hillary Clinton. I told you I'd get a lot of backlash in the comment section, and as predicted, that's exactly what happened. But I can't help it. This week, Bill Maher again made a sexist joke, almost more about Donald Trump in his monologue, as I will discuss after you watch that quick clip over here.
But look, he appears unstoppable now. Not only did he win the 5 primaries on Tuesday on the East Coast, but he won big. And Hillary won 4 out of the 5 pretty big, too. It looks pretty sure now it's going to be Hillary versus Donald Trump. That is your national election. On one side, a hysterical woman, and on the other side, Hillary Clinton.
Last week I faulted Bill Maher for talking about the wicked witch archetype that's been used to denigrate women, but that's a little more exotic archetype. Some people didn't buy it, but I think the hysterical woman archetype, using that, and I didn't even take the clip that Bill Maher used later when he was talking to his panel. He was talking about, what's masculine about Donald Trump. He's doing all these like crazy ex-girlfriend type things, or that, I don't think he said crazy ex-girlfriend, but he basically said he's fitting the crazy woman stereotype, and even kind of mentioned it was a stereotype. But you don't need to see that clip to get the idea that Bill Maher is using a negative feminine or negative female stereotype in that joke that actually, I didn't think was even that funny. Sometimes I think the jokes are funny and sexist. That one was kind of predictable. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. I'm going to move on to actually one more joke that I thought was a little more funny and has to do with one of the news events that you'll see covered from Donald Trump's interview, and I think in Ted Cruz's interview as well. This is Donald Trump made his big presidential speech on foreign policy using teleprompters and trying not to say too much crazy stuff, and it didn't go that well. And then it kind of talks about the foreign policy endorsement he also got in Indiana from someone over in this clip.
More foreign policy advice came from Bobby Knight. You know, he got the endorsement. Remember Bobby Knight, the coach from Indiana, got the endorsement of Bobby Knight to make sure that he was locking up the old white full of rage vote. And Bobby Knight was saying Truman was a great president. He had the guts to drop the atom bomb, and Trump would do the same. And Japan said, ready for Hillary? We're ready for Hillary.
So those are the jokes about Donald Trump from Bill Maher. In that second one, I thought that one was more funny, and it does kind of tie into this foreign policy speech. And one of the weird things Donald Trump had said in that foreign policy speech is that it's important in foreign policy to be unpredictable, which I'm not really sure that's true. I mean, I could see maybe some fairly rare circumstances where that might be true, but certainly not when it comes to the use of nuclear weapons, like he was getting endorsed in Indiana by the also volatile basketball coach Bobby Knight. But having shown those two comedy clips on the Republican side of the race, now I wanted to show Martha Raddatz's introduction to the Republican side. And one of the reasons I wanted to show this is because it is the introduction to one of Donald Trump's surrogates who was on the program right after this news story, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's Mike Huckabee's daughter. And it has to do with this other thing that Donald Trump got in trouble for. He accused Hillary Clinton of playing the woman card and saying she wouldn't get more than 5% of the vote if she were a man. And that's covered pretty extensively in this news story from ABC that I will show and discuss after you watch it here.
If Hillary Clinton were a man, I don't think she'd get 5% of the vote. The only thing she's got going is the woman's card.
Well, if fighting for women's health care and paid family leave and equal pay is playing the woman card, then deal me in.
Even before the primaries are settled, the gloves are off, and the fight over what's being called the woman card is one Hillary Clinton seems eager to join. Trump is throwing out two ideas, that the only thing keeping Hillary Clinton's candidacy afloat is the fact she's a woman and that women don't like her. There's a lot at stake. Since 1964, more women than men have voted in every presidential election. And in this one, looking more likely by the day, Trump is starting from behind. The latest poll, 69% of women have an unfavorable opinion of him. 45% of women have an unfavorable view of Clinton. So what's the strategy here for Trump? Why risk making a bad situation worse? One answer, outrage, has worked for him so far. Remember what he said about Mexicans in his announcement speech.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Rather than sink his campaign, as some predicted, Trump's harsh rhetoric has won him the support of a majority of Republican voters.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
After that, widely criticized as un-American, even disqualifying, exit polls show nearly 7 out of 10 GOP primary voters favor banning non-U.S. Muslims from entering the country.
You know, when I made the statement about Muslims, banning Muslims on a temporary basis, I took such heat. Now people are saying, you know, Trump is sort of right about that.
So would a tactic that worked fine in the primaries also work in a general election? It's a huge question. Joining me now to debate this.
And that flash of a picture there you saw was of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is, I'm going to show that clip in just a minute, but one thing I wanted to point out about that last clip, not only is it used to introduce the question to the guest, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's opposed to someone from the Clinton campaign. I didn't take a clip from her, but I thought that was kind of an interesting analysis about the way Donald Trump has used outrage to get ahead in the polls, and that that might work for him in this case, but then again, it might not work for him. But that wasn't really an issue that was taken up by his surrogate in this next clip, the daughter of former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who was also a presidential candidate earlier in the race. You'll see she gives kind of the same bogus defense you'll see Donald Trump give when I get to one of those clips in a few minutes. And one of the things she says, he blames Bernie Sanders in a way. Donald Trump also blames Bernie Sanders for one of his attacks on Hillary Clinton later about whether she's qualified. And you'll see that, and which in a way that Bernie Sanders never said it. And you'll see Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I think that's her last name, no relation to Bernie Sanders, I assume, also says that Bernie Sanders claimed that Hillary Clinton was playing the woman card, which is not something I remember ever happening, but you can tell me what you think down in the comment section as you watch that question from Martha Raddatz to the surrogate for Donald Trump on ABC's This Week This Morning over here.
That worked fine in the primaries also work in a general election. It's a huge question. Joining me now to debate this, Trump campaign senior advisor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She is the daughter of Mike Huckabee and managed his presidential campaign until he dropped out. And Clinton campaign supporter Stephanie Shriak, president of Emily's List, which supports female Democratic candidates. Welcome, ladies. I want to start with you, Sarah. Trump has found success attacking Muslims, but this is different. Since 1964, more women than men have voted in presidential elections. So why is he doing this?
I don't think he's attacking women. I think he is pointing out something, frankly, that Bernie Sanders' campaign has been talking about for months, that Hillary Clinton's biggest thing that she's running on is the fact that she's a woman. She doesn't have a successful record to run on, and so she has to turn to the only thing I think that she thinks she has in her arsenal, and that is the fact that she's a woman.
He's questioned her strength and stamina, accused her of shouting. Is what he's doing really try to make her just a woman and do exactly what you're saying? Is that your strategy right there?
I don't think he's saying those things because she's a woman. I think that, again, the person that is playing the woman card is Hillary, not Donald Trump. And I think when you put them together on the issues, Donald Trump is going to win hands down because Hillary doesn't have the strong record to run on.
Stephanie, you think he's attacking women?
And like I said, I'm not going to show the surrogate for the Clinton campaign, but I thought that that was a fairly bogus argument, not very convincing. And you heard partway through there, she actually said that Bernie Sanders accused Hillary Clinton of playing the woman card, which I don't really recall. You can let me know down in the comment section if I've forgotten something, but I don't recall specifically the phrase woman card ever coming out of Bernie Sanders' mouth in this campaign. But now I'm actually going to move on to Donald Trump himself and some of his bogus arguments. He, as I've been pointing out, I've even been putting "No Trump!" exclamation point in the title of my videos for the last few weeks, because Donald Trump has been, before the last few weeks, has been calling into all these programs, usually on multiple programs. I'd have the most clips of anyone coming from Donald Trump many weeks, and that's why the Republican side has taken so long most weeks, because Donald Trump has been monopolizing the airwaves, so to speak. Well, he hasn't been on the Sunday shows for a month now, which Chris Wallace over on Fox News Sunday was definitely crowing about, and you'll see in this introduction saying that they finally got an exclusive with Donald Trump after he took a month off, and then he says like nice things about Donald Trump. I don't know if that was part of the deal, but how he's like on big victories, dominating, and I will discuss that clip after you watch it over here.
Appeared on a Sunday show in almost a month, but he agreed to an exclusive interview today to mark our anniversary. And after landslide victories on the East Coast, he's looking ahead to Indiana Tuesday, where a big win could effectively clinch the nomination. Mr. Trump, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Good morning.
You were the target of sometimes violent protests in California this week, opposing your hardline immigration policy. Are you concerned that if you're the Republican nominee, these demonstrations could disrupt your campaign?
No, we were at that particular moment. We had 31,000 people in the stands. It was packed. They've never had a crowd like that. It's the biggest crowd they've ever had. We had 31,000 people. We didn't have a riot. We didn't have anybody even raise their hand. It was like a love fest for an hour and a half. It was incredible. I didn't even see the riot. I guess it was, you know, these are wise guys that stomp on policemen's cars, and it's a terrible thing that people are allowed to get away with this. These were professional agitators. They were wearing masks. The cops told me anytime you see a guy with a mask, you know he's a professional. And they were wearing masks. And these people have to be dealt with very strongly because you can't allow that to happen to a police car, you know, essentially. But this was an amazing evening where we had 31,000 people, and almost never, other than a couple of helicopter shots, did anybody see the crowd, the massiveness of the crowd. A record-setting crowd, and nobody even saw it. They only showed some guys making noise outside.
But, Mr. Trump, it is...
So Donald Trump says that his crowd, it was actually a love fest, and all those nasty images you saw on the outside, those were professional agitators, as you could tell. And that was actually something that Chris Wallace followed up on a little bit in a somewhat controversial, confrontational way, where he said, you know, but they weren't all professional agitators. And then he adds in this gratuitous reference to illegal aliens, which I don't quite understand. And you'll see when he then brings up Donald Trump's bad poll numbers with Latinos, Donald Trump pivots and says, well, it's because I haven't attacked Hillary Clinton enough in the general election, which Chris Wallace never really follows up on and doesn't really make any sense, as I will discuss after you watch that clip over here.
It isn't just, as you say, professional agitators. You've angered a lot of people in this country beyond even the illegal immigrants. In a recent poll, 15% of Hispanic voters have a favorable view of you, 81% unfavorable. I don't have to tell you, you cannot win in November with those numbers.
Well, I say those numbers are going way up once I start going. I have 2 more people I have to get rid of. I started off with 17, and one by one I knocked them off. I knocked off Jeb Bush, who was easy. I knocked off Walker. I knocked off a lot of very talented people. And frankly, I have to, you know, I have to do what I have to do. Now, once I start on Hillary, you'll see the numbers change. I mean, look, when I started this, everybody said, well, I'm not a professional politician, which is a good thing, by the way, but it's true. But one by one, I won, and now I'll have history. Watch what happens. Watch what happens with Hillary, and watch what happens with my numbers. But I've been hit with 55,000 negative ads, 55,000, over $100 million of negative ads. Kasich hasn't been hit with one ad. I mean, he's not going anywhere anyway, frankly, but he hasn't been hit with an ad, and neither is Cruz. I've been hit with 55,000 ads, and I'm still leading in a landslide, and I think doing really well in, as you probably have seen, I'm doing really well in Indiana. And one more thing, the last 2 polls that came out have me tied with Hillary, and one has me winning.
Well, let me talk to you about you.
So, like I said, sorry, I was reading your comments down in the comment section. I'm actually going to show one in just a minute. As I said, though, Chris Wallace there did not follow up at all on how Donald Trump kind of distracted from his bad numbers with Latinos to say he was attacking Hillary Clinton. You'll see in the next clip I show, Chris Wallace actually shows or asks him about his bad numbers with women and doesn't follow up on the Latino question at all. But I wanted to show a question I saw, or a comment that somebody posted. Let's see if I can get it to import here. Old Maryland said, I didn't see any masks in the crowd, which I guess is a comment on what Donald Trump was saying about the professional agitators wearing masks. And I don't know if Old Maryland was actually at the Burlingame event or was watching it on TV. I actually almost went because Burlingame's only like a couple hours from where I live, but I had to be back for this concert at my daughter's high school, and so unfortunately I could have gotten some great video, but I just didn't have the time to get back from Burlingame. And especially it looks like the protesters delayed Donald Trump's speech like an hour, so I would have been in big trouble if I'd gone to Burlingame. But apparently Old Maryland either went to Burlingame or was watching all the copious amounts of video I saw on all the cable news stations about these protesters. And I don't recall seeing any masks either, but Donald Trump seems to think there were masks. And Donald Trump has a lot of kind of weird ideas about women, especially. I wanted to show this next clip where, like I said before I criticized that last clip, Chris Wallace didn't follow up on the Latino issue, but he then pivoted to the women or woman issue or women's issue, where Donald Trump has said that that Hillary's playing the woman card, which doesn't do wonders for him in his problematic polls with women, which is kind of what Chris Wallace brought up in this next question. And this is also one of the, I think in the follow-up here, Donald Trump makes that assertion that Bernie Sanders was saying the same thing about, well, you'll see what it is he says that Bernie Sanders said that I think isn't true, as I will discuss after you watch that clip over here.
You talked about Hillary Clinton. Let's talk about your standing with women, too, because in that same poll that showed you overwhelmingly negative among all Hispanic voters, 24% of women have a favorable view of you, 75% unfavorable. And yet, in your victory speech on Tuesday night, here's what you had to say about Clinton.
I think the only card she has is the woman's card. She's got nothing else going. And frankly, if Hillary Clinton were a man, I don't think she'd get 5% of the vote.
Now, I got to tell you, strategists in both parties say if you consciously went about it, if you specifically planned, you couldn't have said anything that would drive your numbers among women even lower.
Really? Okay, well, I'm my own strategist, and I like that, what I said, and it's true. I only tell the truth, and that's why people are voting for me.
Wait a minute.
And don't forget, in the Republican primaries, which I just beat Cruz by numbers that up like 50%, I was up by so much. I had 62 in New York, and I was 63 and 64.
Mr. Trump, I mean, with all due respect, whether or not you like, let me just ask the question.
But Chris, all of the polls coming out, I won with the women by landslides. I beat Cruz, and I beat
I understand, but Hillary Clinton's a different deal. And regardless of whether you like her or not, or think that she should be president or not, to say, I mean, she was a senator, she was the Secretary of State for 4 years, to say if she were a man, she'd get 5%. Isn't that kind of dismissive?
Well, Bernie Sanders said a lot worse than that. He said that she almost shouldn't be allowed to run, that she's not qualified to run, and she's not capable. I mean, Bernie Sanders, what he said was a lot worse than what I said, and I'm going to use that. We'll have that teed up. But Bernie Sanders said she shouldn't be allowed to run, that she's not capable. And you know, what he said is incredible. It's a soundbite. It's an automatic. In fact, as soon as she said it, they broke in and they said, I can just imagine Donald Trump watching these statements Bernie Sanders has making about Clinton. So, look, she's a strong person. She's going to have to be able to take it. The fact is, the only card she has is the woman's card. She's done a lousy job in so many ways, and even women don't like her. They don't like her. But it is the woman's card, and she plays it. And I'll let you know in about 6 months whether or not she plays it well. But I don't think she'll play it well. I don't think she'll play it well at all. And it's true. If she were not a woman, she wouldn't even be in this race.
All right. Let's talk about your...
So you can see there, Donald Trump doesn't back off his woman card comment. He doubles down on it. And he also makes this claim that Bernie Sanders did go a little too far a couple weeks ago, as I showed in my live clip roundup, where he had talked about Hillary Clinton possibly being unqualified to be president, and he talked about it's because of her policy positions that weren't, in keeping with the needs of the great majority of the American people who, need economic justice. And you've heard Bernie Sanders' talking points. You'll hear him a little bit again at the end of the clip roundup, because the Bernie Sanders, those are the last two clips I'm showing. But the thing is, Bernie Sanders never said she shouldn't be allowed to run. That's something that Donald Trump said on the stump for a while, that because of the email scandal, the problem with her server, that maybe she shouldn't be allowed to run. That's one of Donald Trump's talking points. Bernie Sanders never said that. In fact, he said, "I'm sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails." That was his famous line on that. Never, I think she might not be allowed to run. That was Donald Trump. So I don't know why Donald Trump is like remembering something he said as something Bernie Sanders said, but A lot of stuff he says doesn't make a lot of sense, and you'll see in this next clip, Chris Wallace does a good job, I think, of showing that even having given that presidential foreign policy speech with the teleprompters this week, there were a lot of contradictions in his foreign policy speech and not a lot of depth, and Donald Trump isn't able to really fill in any of that depth when he's questioned by Chris Wallace about it and this is like 4.5 minutes of Chris Wallace trying to get him to give some of those details and failing over here.
Your big foreign policy speech this week, which I think it's fair to say got mixed reviews. One of the concerns, the biggest criticism perhaps, was that there were contradictions, for instance, in how you would handle the Middle East. Here you are.
We're getting out of the nation-building business and instead focusing on creating stability in the world.
The question is, if we're going to disengage from that part of the world, how do we promote stability? You talk about, in your speech, the futility of creating democracies. Would you like to see a return to strongmen in the Middle East, people like Mubarak and Saddam Hussein?
Isn't it too bad that we knocked him out in the first place? Okay, you know, if our presidents went to the beach for 365 days a year, we'd be a lot better in the Middle East than we are now. Now you have a mess. You have a big, fat mess. And I called that a long time ago in 04 and 03. I said, don't knock out. When you knock out Iraq, you're going to ruin the balance. And the balance has been horrible. Then you had Libya and Syria and everything. I mean, they couldn't have been worse. The people that advised our presidents or our presidents, whoever was the one that came up with this plan, I mean, what we've done in the Middle East, we've spent $4 trillion, and we're far worse than the first gunshot that was fired. And what we've got to do is we've got to knock off ISIS, and we've got to at some point get out of there, because we have to rebuild our country. Our country is becoming third world. Our airports, our roadways, our train systems. You go to China and you go to other places, they have trains that travel 300 miles an hour. We have the Long Island Railroad that can hardly move. I mean, we are like a third world country, but we have to get rid of ISIS, and we have to get rid of them very decisively. And I've been saying for a long time, keep the oil. ISIS now has Libyan oil. You know, it's among the finest oils in the world. ISIS now has the Libyan oil. We don't even do anything to.
Mr. Trump,
we don't even do anything to stop it. They're making a fortune with Libyan oil.
Let me pick up on this.
And if we would have left Gaddafi, you wouldn't have that. Look, every move we made in the Middle East was wrong. And a lot of times they want me to get these, great foreign advisors and these great geniuses, and they've been involved for 15 years. I don't want the people that have been involved for 15 years, because those are the people that have absolutely what they've done to this country and our country. And on top of it, we owe $19 trillion in debt.
But let me pick up on this, because when you talk about, we need to stop spending money overseas and spend it at home, that sounds more like a liberal Democrat. And the question I have is, you talk about the mess, your words, that Bush and Obama and Clinton have made in the Middle East, interventions in Iraq and Libya. It almost sounds like you would be, as a general election candidate, you would be criticizing Hillary Clinton from the left, that we should be less intervening in the rest of the world.
I want to rebuild our country. I want to rebuild our military, make it bigger, better, stronger than ever before. I want to take care of our vets. We have to handle education. We have to get rid of Obamacare. Our education system is a disaster, and we got to get rid of Common Core, which is just absolutely no good.
Would it be fair to say that Hillary Clinton will be the hawk in this race?
Chris, we have so many things to do with our country. We can't have this anymore. We are spending all of our money in the Middle East. We're spending numbers that are crazy.
So, Mr.
And on top of that, we're defending the world. We're the policemen to the world.
Would it be fair to say
and this country can't afford to do it?
Would it be fair to say that Hillary Clinton will be the hawk in this race and you'll be the dove?
No, I'll tell you what. I'll be much tougher than her. I will have much more respect than her from foreign countries. In fact, I read today where they're very concerned with me. They feel I'm very strong, very tough, and they're very concerned. So that's a little opposite of what you're telling me. That's a psychological thing, which frankly is good. Let them be a little concerned. Look, we're defending Germany. We're defending Japan, South Korea. We're defending Saudi Arabia with all of that money. And we're not getting properly reimbursed. We don't have any money, and we're like the policemen to the world. What's going on is crazy. We are going to strengthen our military big league. By the way, it's the cheapest money you can spend. And we've got to pull back. because that is just a big mess. That's a revolution. That's a civil war. That's a religious war going over there. We're in the middle of it. For 15 years, we've been wasting time, killing lives, and I mean lives on both sides.
Mr. Trump, we're running out of time.
Hundreds of thousands, even millions of people have been killed
Mr. Trump,
because of horrible decision-making by our presidents.
And for my 20th anniversary, let me ask a couple.
And I'm going to show I believe the next question there as well. I have most of the Fox News interview with Donald Trump. I think that there's one or two questions I'm missing, but down in the video description, as always, you can find a link to the full program if you want to see the full program. I wanted to point out that clip. Not only was Donald Trump's answer pretty superficial, his talking points aren't all that coherent, but the point that Chris Wallace made about halfway through there about Donald Trump possibly running to the left of Hillary Clinton on foreign policy, I think that is something that might actually happen, especially since they're looking more and more like they're going to be the two nominees. And a lot of what Donald Trump said there about U.S. interventionism in the Middle East puts him to the left of some of Hillary Clinton's decisions, and that's going to be a weird dynamic. I talked about it a little bit when there was some chance that Rand Paul would be the Republican nominee, that he would be to the left of Hillary Clinton on foreign policy. And when I get to the Democratic side of the 2016 presidential race, and I show several clips from Hillary Clinton, one of them will be Jake Tapper asking sort of the other side of the same question, asking Hillary Clinton if Donald Trump is going to be to the left of her in the general election. But before I get to that, I want to show a few more clips from Donald Trump and then a bunch of clips from Ted Cruz, since Ted Cruz did the full Ginsberg and went on all 5 programs. But first, to finish up Donald Trump, this is a kind of interesting question that Chris Wallace asked him about a joke that Barack Obama made at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. If you look at my White House Correspondents' Dinner clip roundup, this is one of the ones listed, I think, under President Obama makes fun of Donald Trump. And one of the jokes he made, you'll see it here. I don't know, should I give it away? Spoiler, I guess. Well, it's about it. The punchline involves, well, maybe I should show the clip and then I'll talk about one of the things I think it shows about Donald Trump. And he generally, I think, has a good answer, saying that he thought that Barack Obama did a good job, and you'll see that at the end. But you'll see at the beginning of his answer, he's kind of thin-skinned about one point, as I will discuss after, and without giving away the joke. I will let you watch it, and then after you watch this 1 and 10-second clip, I will discuss it then.
A couple of questions, okay?
Yes.
President Obama, excuse me, took some shots at you again at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last night. Here's one of them.
They say Donald lacks the foreign policy experience to be president. But in fairness, he has spent years meeting with leaders from around the world. Miss Sweden, Miss Argentina.
He also said that you could close Guantanamo Bay because you're good at running waterfront properties into the ground.
Well, I guess I'm good at something because I made $10 billion and I started with a $1 million loan. So now I have over $10 billion of net worth. So I guess I'm good at something. And I have the best waterfront properties in the world. So I don't even know what he's talking about. But I have some of the great waterfront properties in the world. You look at Turnberry, you look at all of the jobs I've done in Los Angeles.
But your reaction
elsewhere.
to what the president had to say?
Well, I think it was fine. It's a comedy. I mean, it's fine. I thought he did a nice job. It was good. I wasn't there. But I thought he did a nice job. My children went, actually.
Finally, let's turn to the Indian.
Well, it seems that Donald Trump was a little bit thin-skinned there about whether he ran his waterfront properties into the ground and about his bankruptcies and the fact that Barack Obama made fun of both Donald Trump and himself. He was also making fun of himself and his inability to get Guantanamo closed, which was also something that Larry Wilmore made fun of Barack Obama I think in like the second to last clip, if I recall, that I show in my White House Correspondents' Dinner clip roundup that, like I said, is linked down in the video description under the first topic of the media, because that was one of the topics that brought up the media. But I want to show one more Donald Trump clip. This is kind of interesting because it responds to something that Ted Cruz said, and the next clip I'm going to show after this is of the longer version of Ted Cruz saying what is at the beginning of the question here that Chris Wallace asked Donald Trump, and it has to do with his association with Mike Tyson, which apparently both Ted Cruz and the Ted Cruz Super PAC has also been putting an ad together, and they can't coordinate, but somehow they both decided to hit this topic at the same time, hitting Donald Trump for his association with the boxer Mike Tyson. And this is the last Donald Trump clip for those of you who are getting sick of it over here.
On Tuesday, we talked with Ted Cruz earlier, and we'll play that in the next segment. But here's how he posed the choice for voters in Indiana. Here he is.
You want a contrast of this entire race. It is Donald and Mike Tyson, a convicted rapist, versus me standing with Carly Fiorina and Mike Pence.
It's interesting, the Cruz campaign is making an issue of your support for Mike Tyson back during the time of the rape conviction in 1992. Your reaction to that?
It just shows what a liar he is. So Mike Tyson over the internet endorsed me. He said, I endorse Mr. Trump. He said that. That was it. No big deal. I didn't have a meeting or anything. I haven't seen Mike in years, but he said he endorsed me. So Cruz is now saying, oh, he was a rapist. This guy is a real liar. That's why we call him Lying Ted Cruz. I mean, the greatest liar that ever lived, except he gets caught every time. Look, I have Bobby Knight's endorsement. We go around. In fact, I'm going right now after this show. I'm going to Indiana. We're going to have Bobby Knight. We're going to have other people that are unbelievable. And by the way, if you really take a look at Mike Pence, I think he gave me more of an endorsement than he gave Cruz. He started off with Donald Trump, and what a great job he's done. And I mean, look, his donors and special interests obviously made him give an endorsement. But you know, Chris, because you've covered it, most people think it was more of an endorsement for me than it was for Cruz. It was the weakest endorsement anyone has seen
Final 30
in a long time.
Final 30 seconds. If you
And I'm not showing the final 30 seconds. If you want to see the whole Donald Trump interview, you have to go to the Fox News website or find it somewhere else, because I did do a little editing. I showed almost the whole Donald Trump interview, just like I am going to show almost the whole Hillary Clinton interview as the campaign goes forward, as things, if they keep developing in the way they're developing, those are the two most important candidates because they are getting to be more and more the most likely nominees of their parties. There are ways that both of them could still end up not being the nominee, but just not very likely and getting less likely every week. And that's the result of the 5 primaries that were on Tuesday, where that it made it less likely that anyone else would be the nominee, including Ted Cruz, who is the subject of, like I said, he was interviewed on all 5 of the Sunday morning news analysis shows on the big 5 corporate outlets of NBC, CNN, CBS, Fox News, and ABC. I think I said them out of my regular order that gives me the rhythm, but I got all 5 there. I'm not going to show clips from all 5 of the interviews. A lot of it was duplicative, and I tried to cut out a lot of the duplication. I did have all of the clips, I think, or almost all the clips from Meet the Press, just because I recorded that one first. But one of the interesting things that came up a lot in the Fox News interview, and I'm going to show this one clip from the Fox News interview first because it's the longer version of the clip that Chris Wallace showed to Donald Trump there. And it's at the very end of the interview with Fox News Sunday, and several times during the interview, Chris Wallace mentioned the fact that Ted Cruz had put a time limit on the interview, and he brought up this Mike Tyson is a rapist and a friend of Donald Trump thing 90 seconds from when the time was going to run out. He did the exact same thing over on CBS's Face the Nation. Because it's basically the same argument, I'm not going to show that clip, but it makes me think that he set up a time limit on the interview and then picked this as the last topic when the time was about to run out, which is, you'll see what he did on Fox News Sunday, as I will discuss after you watch that.
Point, Chris. If you want as clear a contrast as possible in Indiana, this week in Indiana, I was celebrating the support of Carly Fiorina and Mike Pence. This week in Indiana, Donald Trump was celebrating the support of Mike Tyson, a convicted rapist who spent 3 years in prison in Indiana.
He also had the support of Bobby Knight.
But let me be clear, Chris. Donald said he thinks Mike Tyson is a, quote, tough guy. Well, I don't think rapists are tough guys. I think they are cowards and weaklings and bullies. And you want a contrast of this entire race. It is Donald and Mike Tyson, a convicted rapist, versus me standing with Carly Fiorina and Mike Pence. And I think the good people of the Hoosier State, that's a choice. Midwestern common sense and good judgment is going to yield, I hope, the right decision.
Senator, thank you very much. Next time, I hope we have more time to talk with each other. I always appreciate it.
I look forward to
it. So I thought that was kind of interesting, the way that he chose the last 90 seconds to, like, sort of filibuster. And you'll see there's going to be a lot of filibustering in this next set of clips. This is the Meet the Press interview that Ted Cruz did. And I took almost all the clips from Meet the Press, not because it was, somehow a better interview, but as I've explained many times, Meet the Press plays earliest. And so I generally watch it first. And if there's any duplication, Meet the Press generally is where I'm going to get the clip. And that's why I have the least numbers of clips from CBS's Face the Nation, which is, I guess, a good thing after CBS being so nasty over copyright. Although they've never really gone to the mat over Face the Nation clips. It was just their being all upset about the use of their Republican debate. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. In this next clip, you'll see this is actually not from the interview with Ted Cruz. This is the setup for the interview with Ted Cruz, and it's kind of a general news story or the state of the race from Chuck Todd on Meet the Press. And I wanted to show it because it's the introduction to his interview with Ted Cruz, and you'll see he has Ted Cruz respond somewhat to what he's reporting at the beginning of the interview over here.
Donald Trump's candidacy has become. Consider this. Trump didn't just win all 5 states at play on Tuesday. He won all of Pennsylvania's 67 counties. He won all 23 counties in Maryland. He won all 8 counties in Connecticut, all 5 in Rhode Island, and all 3 in Delaware. In other words, each and every one of the 106 counties that voted last Tuesday, and he won all but 2 of those counties by double digits. You want a little bit more? Trump now needs just 47% of the remaining delegates to go to Cleveland with the magic number of 1237. Ted Cruz and John Kasich are mathematically eliminated. They each need to win more than 100% of the remaining delegates. An impossible task. So where does that leave Ted Cruz? Journalists have gone to the cliche handbook. He's throwing a Hail Mary, pulling out all the stops, throwing spaghetti against the wall. Well, guess what? None of it seems to be sticking. This week's mutual non-aggression pact with John Kasich collapsed. Cruz's choice of Carly Fiorina as his running mate produced very little buzz. And now there's this. With Cruz counting on Tuesday's primary in Indiana to stop Trump, our latest NBC News Wall Street Journal Marist poll has Trump leading Ted Cruz by a whopping 15 points, close to 50%, 49-34. John Kasich way behind in third at 13%. In fact, Bernie Sanders is in better shape in Indiana against Hillary Clinton than Ted Cruz is. In fact, Sanders only trails Clinton by 4 points in Indiana, 50-46. So it was with all that in mind.
I thought that was kind of an unnecessary diss of Bernie Sanders at the end there, where Chuck Todd is basically saying, Ted Cruz is doing so badly in Indiana, he's doing like 3 times worse than even Bernie Sanders. Can you believe how badly? And actually, that's kind of amazing that Bernie Sanders is within like 4 or 5 points there in Indiana. That could be, well, I'm going to get to a couple Bernie Sanders clips at the end that show basically he needs to win like 65% of the pledged delegates at this point, which is, as he says, a big uphill climb, or you'll see that at the end when I get to the Democratic side. But I want to get to the Ted Cruz clips, and the first one is Chuck Todd asking him about, why he's doing so badly. Why has John Kasich actually gotten more votes than you in the last week? And Ted Cruz, this is actually one of his shorter answers, and I will talk about it a little more if you watch that over here.
That I began my conversation with Senator Ted Cruz on Friday, and I began by asking him why even John Kasich has actually received more Republican votes than Ted Cruz has since Cruz won Wisconsin 3 weeks ago.
Well, Chuck, what we have been seeing happening for several months now is Republicans uniting behind our campaign. Now, you're right. You're focusing on the last week. The last week, Donald Trump won his home state of New York, and he won the adjoining states in the Northeast. And the media reacted with heart palpitations at what a wonderful, wonderful, decisive moment it was for Donald. But as you know well, in the 3 weeks that preceded New York, 5 states voted: Utah, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Colorado, Wyoming. A total of 1.3 million people voted in those 5 states, and we won landslides 5 states in a row. In fact, I won more Republican votes in Wisconsin than Donald Trump did in New York, although that somehow hasn't been reported an awful lot.
If you don't win Indiana, do you...
So that seems like total spin to me, basically, especially if you look at the numbers that Chuck Todd reported on in his introduction to his interview with Ted Cruz, and I'm sure Ted Cruz knows those numbers, that if he doesn't win in Indiana, it's basically, I saw several pundits claim that there's a possibility that Ted Cruz could actually drop out of the race. And the one thing that made me think, oh, maybe that could actually happen is why else he's doing what they call the full Ginsberg. He went on all 5 shows this morning. Is this like his last hurrah where he's like, this is the last time he's a serious candidate? I mean, even now he mathematically cannot get to the number 1237. All he can do is maybe stop Trump, although that doesn't even seem that likely, especially if he loses Indiana on Tuesday. But the next clip I want to show is also mercifully not one of the big long filibuster clips of Ted Cruz talking to Chuck Todd on Meet the Press. In this one, you'll see that he is asked by Chuck Todd a question he answered on almost all the programs, whether he must win in Indiana. And it's one of several questions he basically didn't quite answer, which is not something that makes him appealing to voters, I don't think, as I will discuss after you watch that clip over here.
If you don't win Indiana, do you get out of the race?
Indiana is an important state. We are competing hard. We're barnstorming the state. We're on a bus tour, Heidi and I and the girls and Carly, and we're seeing great support in Indiana. And I will say this, Indiana has a chance to choose. Do we want to support a campaign that is based on yelling and screaming and cursing and insults? Or do we want to unify behind a positive, optimistic, forward-looking conservative campaign based on real policy solutions to the problems
So if
facing
Indiana
this
rejects
country?
you, if they're rejecting that argument, are they not?
Well, I don't believe so. I think the support we're seeing is surging. There's a reason Governor Mike Pence offered his support. He's hearing from Hoosiers across the state that don't want a campaign that is based on yelling and bullying.
All right, I want to go to your struggles.
I saw him say that same talking point about the Hoosiers are surging or whatever. That's not exactly what he said. And every time I hear it, it makes me laugh because when I lived in St. Louis, Missouri, for some reason the word Hoosier was like a derogatory term. I don't know if it's because people in Missouri hate people in Indiana, or I know in Indiana the word Hoosier is like a positive term, but it was like it meant like hick, hillbilly, redneck, or some white trash. I don't know. That's how people in St. Louis, it was pretty universally understood in St. Louis that the word Hoosier meant all those derogatory terms. So whenever I hear people, and I lived in St. Louis for like 5 years around the time I was in law school and when I started off being a public defender there. So that always makes me laugh, but I wanted to point that out. But I also wanted to move on to this next clip, which is another question that was asked on, I think, almost all of the 5 programs. A weird thing that Ted Cruz did this week was he named a vice presidential running mate, even though he has almost no chance of winning. He named Carly Fiorina, who the two people who were like hardest to listen to in the Republican side, Ted Cruz, who's still in the race, and then Carly Fiorina, who I thought I wasn't going to have to listen to anymore, but I don't know if you watch. I'm not going to play you the clip of her singing the song she sang to Ted Cruz's children, but I'll spare you that. I don't think that appears in any of the clips. I'm sure it doesn't. I would know if I had chosen that clip, because that's an experience that I would recommend you just skip that experience. But I am going to show Ted Cruz answering a question about Carly Fiorina that he answered on most of the shows he went on this morning, where they showed clips of Carly Fiorina saying negative things about him earlier in the campaign, and he had the same stock answer. It lasts about 2 minutes. It's a competitive environment, and she has all this character, and he kind of talks about how they got to know her. Luckily, he doesn't talk about her singing the song to the kids, but I will talk about it a little more after you watch it over here.
Your struggles in uniting the party around you. In fact, this is what you're now running mate.
Tell me what you really think,
Well,
Chuck.
no, it's not about me. I'm just asking about your struggles here, getting the party to rally around you. Here's your running mate. Here's what your running mate said about you when she was running for president. Take a listen.
There's no honor in charging a hill that you know you can't take, only casualties, although Ted Cruz maybe got name recognition and money along the way.
I find it odd that Senator Ted Cruz did not renounce his dual Canadian citizenship until 2014, when it became clear he was running for president.
Ted Cruz is just like any other politician. He says one thing in Manhattan, he says another thing in Iowa, he says whatever he needs to say to get elected, and then he's going to do as he pleases.
Which Carly Fiorina should we believe?
Well, I'll tell you, Chuck, listen, when you have a competitive primary, people play hard, they play vigorous, and so she was competing and trying to win, and that's what people do in the course of a primary. You know, I'll tell you how the choice of Carly came about. It was a little over 7 weeks ago that she publicly endorsed me. And she did that after coming to the conclusion. She voted for me in Virginia first. Long after she dropped out, she came to the conclusion I was the strongest candidate. And after she endorsed, Carly went on the road with me. Heidi and I have spent a lot of time with Carly campaigning, getting to know each other firsthand. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons we did a long and extensive search to narrow down the right VP nominee. It's perhaps the most serious and solemn decision a presidential candidate makes. But it ended up being a very easy choice because I wanted someone who had the knowledge to do the job, to be president, who had the judgment to do the job, and who had the character to do the job. And you know, Carly's story is extraordinary. She stands up to Donald Trump. She stands up to Hillary Clinton. Bullying is not a sign of strength. It's a sign of weakness and insecurity. And Carly has shattered glass ceilings her entire life. And I'm incredibly proud to be running on a ticket with Carly.
Donald Trump.
I watched that answer, you know, just 3 times for that one clip. Usually, as I've mentioned before, I watch each clip that I show at least 3 times generally. Once when I watch the show the first time, then when I go back and capture it into a clip on my laptop, and then the third time I watch it during the live show while you're watching it. And unfortunately, that particular answer, like I said, Ted Cruz was asked that question on several different shows, so I think I've now watched that answer like 7 or 8 times, and I'm kind of glazing over. You can let me know what you think down in the comments section. I actually really appreciate the people who comment as live viewers because, as I explained, I think last week, the live viewer comments that scroll by the screen while the actual broadcast is going on, and that I discuss while the broadcast is going on, they are included in a fair use analysis as to whether I'm adding, you know, I'm transforming the corporate media video clips I'm taking into something new and adding commentary and media criticism and political analysis. Well, your comments for the live viewers also count because they aren't after the time that I posted it and committed my alleged copyright infringement. They actually occurred during the broadcast and are part of the broadcast. I wanted to refer to one more viewer comment. This actually I saw during the Donald Trump clips. This is one of my more enthusiastic LiberalViewer Sunday live clip roundup viewers. That's Phil Brzezinski saying thanks for the facts. So if that means I must actually be adding facts. That's another mark in my favor in a fair use analysis, although I don't know why I'm getting so paranoid about that. It seems like that's not going to be a big issue, at least knock on wood over here. You can't see the wood, but I want to actually switch out briefly from the Meet the Press interview with Ted Cruz and show one more clip from the Fox News Sunday interview because it has to do with Carly Fiorina, and I think Chris Wallace asked that same question that I just showed about the negative comments Carly Fiorina made earlier in the campaign, but he also asked this question that I think is actually something that's much more negative about Carly Fiorina, and Chris Wallace then even tied it into the Indiana primary that's coming up on Tuesday in a way that kind of makes Ted Cruz sweat a little, I think, but he gives another 2-minute answer over in this clip.
Clear and meaningful contrast.
Let me get to Carly Fiorina, and specifically on the issue of jobs. Yes, you did name her as your running mate this week. Outsourcing is a big issue in Indiana. I don't have to tell you, because the company that controls Carrier Air Conditioning has announced they're going to shift 2,100 jobs from Indiana to Mexico. But Fiorina has a record as head of Hewlett-Packard, laying off 30,000 people and outsourcing many of those jobs to India and China. So I guess the question is, will the Cruz Fiorina team do the same thing to Indiana that she did to Hewlett-Packard?
Carly has an incredible business record and an incredible personal story. You know, Carly started off as a secretary, and she rose the corporate ladder, became CEO of the largest technology company in the world, the first female CEO of. She was the first female CEO of a Fortune 20 company in history, and she helped HP become the largest technology company in the world, achieve remarkable success. Many of those jobs, by the way, were transferred from one state to another within the United States. But let me tell you, when it comes to bringing jobs back to America, there could not be a clearer contrast between Carly and me on the one hand and Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton on the other. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are flip sides of the same coin, and they both have the same approach. Let's take Carrier. Carrier is a very good example. It is a travesty that Carrier is pulling jobs out of Indiana, moving them to Mexico, but the reason they're doing it is because of the Obama administration's crushing taxes and crushing regulations. Now, what is Donald Trump's response to that? It is, he says he's going to punish Carrier. He's going to use the power of the federal government to punish them. By the way, that's the same thing Hillary Clinton says. It's the same thing Barack Obama says. That's the response of big government liberals, that we're going to enact policies that kill jobs, and then when businesses flee, we're going to use the power of government to punish them. My approach is totally different. I understand what both Reagan and John F. Kennedy understood, that when you cut taxes and reduce regulations, you see millions and millions of new jobs. So what I'm going to do is repeal Obamacare, rein in the regulators that are killing jobs, the over 200 regulations from the Department of Energy that drove Carrier to Mexico.
Have insisted on limited time, so
Oh, and you can see there, like I said, Chris Wallace said multiple times during the interview that Ted Cruz had insisted on limited time, and I don't think he did a good job, really, of defending Carly Fiorina for... He said something kind of slippery there that, well, you know, many of those jobs were transferring people from one state to another, which, you know, the word many means it's not most, and it could be 12 of those 30,000 jobs, because 12, you know, that's many people. 12, if you're in a rowboat, 12 people is many people. So I don't know exactly how many of those jobs were many people, but he didn't say how many of the 30,000 were transferred from state to state rather than outsourcing, which is apparently a big issue in the Indiana primary coming up on Tuesday. So I wanted to point that out. And now I'm going to go back to... is it 1, 2, how many more clips from the, I have, like I said, there are 9 total clips of Ted Cruz, and I apologize for that, but like I said, he did do all 5 programs, so the 9 clips kind of reflect that. And this next clip is from Chuck Todd back on Meet the Press, where he asks Ted Cruz about this conflict going on between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton about the woman card, and Ted Cruz, if he was really pivoting towards the general election like Donald Trump, would say that he would use it as an opportunity to attack Hillary Clinton, but instead he really uses it to attack Donald Trump, as I will discuss after you watch that clip over here.
Accused Hillary Clinton of playing a gender card and saying that she wouldn't be anywhere, she'd only be at 5% if she were a man instead of a woman. What do you make of that comment?
Oh, it's typical Donald Trump. The only thing he knows how to do in any given circumstance is he yells, he screams, he curses, or he insults. So there he's insulting Hillary. Listen, Hillary is a very smart, committed liberal. Her policies are profoundly wrong, but, you know, Donald can't criticize her policies. You know why? Because he supports them. Donald and Hillary, they're flip sides of the same coin. They've both gotten rich exploiting Washington, exploiting government power. So Donald can't criticize Hillary Clinton on Planned Parenthood because he agrees with her. They both say it's terrific and it should keep taxpayer funding.
I got to ask you about...
And I'm actually going to show you the next question that Chuck Todd had to ask after showing that short clip. This is another one of those questions where Ted Cruz answered the same thing on pretty much all of the shows he was on. It had to do with something John Boehner said. I think Chuck Todd does a good job of quoting it at the beginning. I may not be the best job because, like I said, I watch Meet the Press first, so I just took the Meet the Press version. Basically, John Boehner said that he was like the worst person to work with ever, and he was a son of a bitch. Oh, and the spawn of Lucifer. Well, something having to do with Lucifer. For some reason, it's, even though I've watched it several times over and over again, it's something having to do with Ted Cruz and Lucifer, which actually I don't find that such a unpersuasive argument. But you can tell me what you think after you watch that clip over here.
I know you've heard him before, but I got to play him for the viewer. The John Boehner comments that he made earlier this week. Here they are, and I'll get you to react on the other side.
How about Ted Cruz? Lucifer in the flesh. I have many Democrat friends, I have Republican friends, I get along with almost everybody. But I've never worked with a more miserable son of a bitch.
The fact is, you cannot seem to get the party to truly rally around you. If anything, the party is now seeming to be accepting the premise that Trump is going to be the nominee. Isn't it because you have these bad relationships with the John Boehners of the world, the Mitch McConnells of the world? You're not going to win this nomination without their help, are you not?
Well, Chuck, you know, I actually think those remarks illustrate exactly what this race is all about. Number one, I don't know John Boehner. The two of us haven't said 50 words to each other in our entire lives.
Why? You wanted a government shutdown that he helped lead. How have you not had any interaction with the Speaker of the House as a leading Republican senator?
Chuck, it's actually a good illustration. During the government shutdown, I reached out and offered for Mike Lee and me to come over and sit down with the Speaker and Majority Leader, and Boehner said, no interest, no value, I'm not willing to talk to you. So I don't know him at all, but what was interesting about Boehner's comments is he praised Hillary Clinton. He thinks she's terrific. And he praised Donald Trump. He said Donald is his friend, he's his texting and golfing buddy. Listen, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and John Boehner are they are the Washington cartel. It is the corruption of Washington. And this is where, with all respect, a lot of the folks in the media don't understand. That's what people are ticked off at. The greatest fraud in this entire election is Donald pretending he's some sort of outsider. Donald and Hillary are the ultimate Washington insiders. They have been enmeshed in the corruption. If you like John Boehner, if you want a presidential candidate like John Boehner, then Donald Trump is your candidate. In fact, I saw those comments and kind of thought Boehner was auditioning to be Trump's VP candidate.
You've spent this entire interview.
I'm going to show the next question, and the very painful, or for me to have to watch for the third time. But for some reason, you know, like I said, I saw Ted Cruz answer that question on almost every program about John Boehner's comments, and I kept saying spawn of Lucifer instead of Lucifer in the flesh. I don't know why, for some reason, my brain put spawn of Lucifer where Lucifer in the flesh should be, but I apologize to my viewers for that terrible error in my introduction of that last clip. But I want to also apologize for showing this next interchange between Chuck Todd and Ted Cruz in its entirety. This is the last clip of Ted Cruz from the Meet the Press interview. I think it goes all the way to the end. He kind of filibusters till the end. I think I have one more clip of Ted Cruz before I move on to the Democratic side, but it's Martha Raddatz over on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. This is Chuck Todd showing how incredibly slippery Ted Cruz is and how he has all these talking points memorized that he filibusters with. You know, he's famous for being an advocate before the Supreme Court, which means he's really good at talking in, you know, a public speaking debate style where you're trying to regurgitate stuff that, you know, a set series of talking points, you know, facts and law when you go before the Supreme Court, that whatever the question is, you want to get in what you've prepared. And that's basically what Ted Cruz does in this next clip, which is over 5 minutes long, but you have to see it to believe it, basically, where Chuck Todd tries over and over again just to get Ted Cruz to say whether or not he will support Donald Trump if Donald Trump is the eventual Republican nominee. And as you'll see, Ted Cruz never answers that question. He answers a lot of other questions that Chuck Todd never asked. But this is the second to last Ted Cruz clip before I move on to the Democrats for tonight over here.
Entire interview trying to eviscerate Donald Trump. If he's the nominee, I take it you can't support him anymore, can you?
I believe if the Republican Party nominates Donald Trump, we will lose to Hillary, because when we offer Democrat light, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton on the ballot, they support the same social policy. They support the same economic policy. In fact, both Donald and Hillary support allowing illegal immigrants to become U.S. citizens. Now, Donald says he'll fly them back to their country
first. Are you going to support him?
We will lose.
I understand what you believe in the Republican Party. Can you support him? Can you tell your delegates,
Chuck,
lay down your arms and support Donald Trump? Well, you may not.
Chuck,
you realize that.
I recognize that many in the media would love for me to surrender to Donald Trump.
It's not about the media,
number one, that Hillary
Senator,
wins,
it's about the numbers. It's about the numbers. He may win. Republican voters are the ones rejecting you. This is not a media conspiracy, Senator.
Well, actually, with all due respect, the media has given $2 billion of free advertising to Donald. Let me ask you a question, for example. How much money did the networks make on every one of the Republican debates?
I have no idea, because we didn't have a Republican debate.
But you know what's interesting, Chuck? It's been now 49 days since we've had a Republican debate. The Democrats have had a debate. Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, they've been willing to debate. Donald can't answer questions about his foreign policy. He can't answer questions about how you bring jobs back to this country.
Why can't you answer the question of whether you can support Donald Trump or not? You can't answer that question. Why won't you answer that question straightforward, black and white?
Chuck, let me finish this point I'm making. Even though the media stands to make millions of dollars off of a debate, you hear radio silence from the media about no debates. They're giving up millions of dollars, and the reason is your network's executives are partisan Democrats. Why doesn't every TV station
You don't get to just say that. Wait a minute. You don't get to just say that. It's just not true, but go ahead. You just throw your broad brushing here, and this is exactly what people hate about the media and politics, broad brushes, right?
Listen, the simple reality is the media almost entirely are liberal partisan Democrats. That is the reality of it. The media created this Trump phenomenon, and then they don't hold him accountable. Now, I'm sure the media planned to do so if he's the nominee. In the general election, suddenly you're going to hear every day about Donald Trump's tax returns. When was the last time you talked about his tax returns? You know, we ought to have a debate. There are real differences. Donald won't debate, and the media won't hold him accountable. I think the people of Indiana deserve
Can you answer the question about whether you're going to support?
In Indiana.
Are you going to support Donald Trump if he's the nominee?
I am going to beat Donald Trump. We are headed to a contested convention, and we're going to win, and I'm not willing to concede this country. Listen, this is my kid's future, Chuck. It's not simply a game.
Nobody's saying it's a game, sir.
If we lose this, we lose our country. We lose the Supreme Court for a generation. Religious liberty is taken away. The Second Amendment is taken away. Our kids are bankrupted. We are at the edge of a cliff. And I'll tell you, the people of Indiana, they really are in a position. The country is depending on them to pull us back from this cliff.
Don't you think it's important to take a stand? You just said it's a time for choosing. If it's a time for choosing, say it. For him or against him as the nominee? It's a time for choosing, is it not?
Chuck, you're welcome to lobby for support for Trump as much as possible. We are going to beat Trump because Trump's winning the nomination loses the country.
Don't you think Republican voters...
I am not willing to give up on America. I'm not willing to give up on America.
But if you care this much about it, don't you think you saying, I can't support him if he's the nominee, doesn't light a fire and send a sense of urgency to the Republican Party?
Chuck, what I'm saying is very, very simple. If you believe in free market principles, if you want to reduce the taxes and regulations on small businesses, if you want to bring jobs back to America, you know, the amazing thing about the three-card monte game being played by Donald Trump is he is laughing at his supporters. He's mocking his supporters because he's lying to them. You know, he tries to pretend he is a supporter of the working man and woman. He's the only person in this race who's had $1 million court judgment against him for hiring illegal aliens. He's the only person in this race who right now is hiring hundreds of foreign workers instead of Americans. And on trade, he pretends to support American fair trade. Donald Trump, the ties he sells, the shirts he sells, the suits he sells are manufactured in Mexico and China. He doesn't intend to change it. We need instead a positive, optimistic campaign that stands with the working men and women of this country. That's what our campaign is about.
All right, so let the record show you have not taken a position on whether you can support Trump if he's the nominee. Fair enough.
And let the record show you tried very, very hard to get me to commit to supporting Trump. The record will show that.
Fair enough. Senator Ted Cruz, I got to let you go. You got a lot to do in the state of Indiana. We'll be watching. Stay safe on the trail, sir.
Thank you, Chuck.
What was that? Nine Ted Cruz clips. I watched 5 Ted Cruz interviews. I've been up since 3 a.m. since I had to put together the White House Correspondent's Dinner clip roundup. I'm very, very tired, and especially very, very tired of Senator Ted Cruz. And I'm happy to report that I have one more clip of Senator Ted Cruz to show to you. It's also the last clip on the Republican side of the debate before, I think I have 9 clips of Hillary Clinton, if I'm remembering correctly, and then 2 of Bernie Sanders. But this is the last Ted Cruz clip, and it's from Martha Raddatz's interview on ABC's This Week. She asked a question I thought was kind of interesting. At first I thought it was a wimpy question because she asked about jokes made about Ted Cruz at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and she didn't show any of the specific jokes, but I think later I figured out, after watching the whole interview, that the interview took place on Friday, the day before the dinner, so she didn't even know what the jokes were going to be, but it gives kind of an interesting answer from Ted Cruz. He never makes fun of himself, which Martha Raddatz gives him the opportunity to do, but he does tell a joke that's at least not completely terrible about Donald Trump's foreign policy in what is mercifully the last Ted Cruz clip of the night over here.
Turn here to this weekend. You know this weekend is the White House Correspondents' Dinner. A lot of fun poked at Washington. Have you found any humor in this election, or can you poke fun at yourself in any way?
Oh, listen, you have to laugh. I laugh every day on the trail and have fun with it. And, you know, part of the reason I think that we have gone to this point, why I'm the last man standing against Donald Trump, why we're uniting the Republican Party, is because we're running a joyful campaign. We're having fun. We're laughing. And I think people can tell a joyful campaign. I am very much a happy warrior. You know, even when Donald Trump engages in nasty attacks and personal slurs, you know, I'm happy to just laugh it off and have fun, because when you're speaking the truth, when you're speaking from the heart, when you know what you believe, you don't have to fake it. And so, yes, there is humor every day. Listen, I am sure you laughed out loud watching Donald Trump's speech on foreign policy where he talked about Tanzania. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that country, Tanzania. You know, I mean, maybe that's where 2 Corinthians live. I don't know. But, you know, I mean, you got to be able to laugh and have fun and enjoy it. And that's very much what we're doing every day.
We're glad you're having fun. Thanks for joining us, Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Martha. God bless.
Okay, let's...
So that was Ted Cruz making, I don't know, not awful joke about Donald Trump misspeaking in his big foreign policy speech. Instead of saying Tanzania, he said Tanzania. I don't know. As I've said before, when I do this like 2-hour live stream broadcast, I say several things wrong, and sometimes I correct myself, and sometimes I don't even notice. So saying Tanzania instead of Tanzania, it does seem a little bit dumb, but not something that you could totally fault someone for, making a big long speech reading from a teleprompter when they're not used to reading from. Well, actually, that part, the fact that it's written down, I'm not reading from anything when I'm talking to you, and I have like a few things written down about. I have sometimes the 3 topic descriptions that are down in the video description. So, at the beginning of the show, I have those in front of me, so I know what I'm about to talk about. But other than that, I don't really have a script, and I don't read from a teleprompter. And I don't know, maybe it seems to me if I had the word Tanzania in front of me, I would say Tanzania. But I don't know. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. And as I said, mercifully, that is the last clip on the Republican side of the 2016 presidential race. Now I'm going to move to the Democratic side of the 2016 presidential race. I'm going to start, as I said, with, I think, 9 clips of Hillary Clinton, who did one interview this morning on CNN's State of the Union with Jake Tapper. And Jake actually did this introduction where he said several things that I thought were a little bit sucking up to Hillary Clinton, saying, you know, how she had she's increasingly likely to be the nominee, which I guess is actually true. I've said that earlier in the broadcast. And, well, you can tell me if you think this is sucking up in the introduction. And then the question is kind of a softball, you know, are you the presumptive nominee? And you can see Hillary Clinton's answer over here.
A general election matchup between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump looks increasingly likely. And when I sat down with Clinton on Friday, in her first and only interview since her commanding 4-state primary victories Tuesday night, I asked her how she plans to take on Trump. Madam Secretary, thanks so much for doing this, and congratulations on Tuesday night.
Thanks a lot, Jake. It was terrific. We really
4 for 5.
Yeah, we had a great campaign in all the states. It felt good.
That night, Donald Trump said that he considers himself the presumptive nominee of his party. Do you consider yourself the presumptive nominee?
No, I consider myself as someone who's on the path, and obviously I'm very far ahead in both the popular vote and the delegate count. So I think the path leads to the nomination, but, you know, I'm going to keep competing in the elections that are up ahead of us.
Senator Sanders issued a statement.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But by the way, one of the reasons I'm a little distracted is I just recently posted a picture of Sandy. I get a lot of questions about Sandy in the comment section. A picture I took of Sandy just at the beginning of the show, and I posted it on Instagram/LiberalViewer. Is that even the right address? And I know it's Facebook.com/LiberalViewer and Twitter.com/LiberalViewer. You can definitely find the picture of Sandy. It's actually kind of a close-up of her face, which is, she's kind of a cute puppy, but kind of silly. Sometimes I think she's very close to being a cartoon dog. If she were just a little more silly, she'd be a cartoon dog. But she's a real dog, as you can see in the picture, for anyone who's interested in Sandy. But Hillary Clinton, not a cartoon dog, but the most likely Democratic nominee. She's most likely to be the Democratic nominee, but she wouldn't say in that last clip that she's the presumptive nominee. But Jake Tapper next asked Hillary Clinton about something Bernie Sanders said after he only won Rhode Island. That was the one state of the big 5 northeastern states last Tuesday that were, Indiana's this Tuesday, I guess. Is it Super Tuesday 5? They were calling it Super Tuesday 4 on CNN, I guess. Well, here's Hillary Clinton responding to Bernie Sanders' statement at the end of the 5 primaries last Tuesday. He almost sounded like he was running as an issue candidate instead of running to win, although at the end of the live stream I'm going to show 2 Bernie Sanders clips where he kind of refutes that. But Hillary Clinton says that she wants to work with Bernie Sanders and progressives, and you can tell me if you believe it after you watch it over here.
The statement that night that suggested he's not necessarily running to win anymore. He's running to advance progressive causes on the Democratic platform. Specifically, he named $15 minimum wage at the national level, Medicare for all, breaking up the banks, changing our trade policy, and passing a tax on carbon. Are these issues where you think you could make a deal with Senator Sanders, find some common ground, and get those issues on the platform, should you be the nominee?
Well, I certainly look forward to working with Senator Sanders in the lead up to the convention, in the lead up to the platform that will represent the Democratic Party. It will be a progressive platform. I've run on a progressive agenda. I really welcome his ideas and his supporters' passion and commitment, because the most important thing for us is to win in November. There is no more important goal. And I was pleased when Senator Sanders said the other day he's going to work tirelessly 7 days a week to make sure that Donald Trump is not president. And I really welcome that, because that has to be our primary objective.
It's interesting because...
And I'm going to show that next question, which is kind of an interesting question from Jake Tapper. Those last 2, I don't know, those were more sort of expected questions, I think, and Hillary Clinton gave, as usual, the most polished, most like focus group tested answers, and I think she will do a pretty good job if she's the Democratic nominee, especially against Donald Trump, but it's not a sure thing yet, as I will discuss when I get to the Bernie Sanders clips at the end. But I want to show Jake Tapper's next clip, which is kind of an interesting way to address or to get her to answer about what she thinks Bernie Sanders should be doing or what she thinks he's actually feeling, by asking her about what she did and felt when she lost to Barack Obama in 2008 over in this clip.
Of all the people in the world, there is probably no one who knows what Bernie Sanders is feeling more than you.
Right. Right.
Take us back to 2008, what you think Senator Sanders is going through, because it's like, oh, I came so close, but...
It's hard, Jake. I mean, you throw yourself into these campaigns, body and soul. You work 24/7. Your family, your supporters, everybody is so invested in trying to win. And I'm very proud of my campaign, grateful that I have such strong support, but I absolutely understand that, you know, Senator Sanders has been a passionate advocate for positions that he cares deeply about. I think that's been helpful to the Democratic primary process. He's brought millions of people into the process, which I think is also very good for the Democratic Party. But there comes a time when you have to look at the reality. In fact, in 2008, I was much closer in both popular vote and pledged delegates to Senator Obama than is the case right now. But eventually, I just decided that I had to withdraw and support Senator Obama, because the goal was to make sure we had a Democrat in the White House. I'm going to be very aggressive in reaching out to Senator Sanders supporters, but we have so much more in common, and we have far more in common than they do with Donald Trump or any Republican.
You talked about Donald Trump's foreign policy.
And I'm going to show that in a second, the Donald Trump foreign policy, 2 questions there. But this is kind of a dividing line in Jake Tapper's interview of Hillary Clinton. The first 3 questions were on the Democratic primary and Bernie Sanders. The next 6 questions are about Donald Trump, and it's kind of a pivot to the general election. And you heard in the question from Jake Tapper, he seemed almost to be assuming that Hillary Clinton is the Democratic nominee, and it's getting closer and closer to that, as again I will discuss when I show the 2 clips of Bernie Sanders, where he's arguing that it's closer and closer, but not quite time for him to say he is eliminated from any possibility of being the Democratic nominee. But now I'm going to pivot to the next 6 questions that Jake Tapper asked Hillary Clinton, all of them about Donald Trump. The first 2 about Donald Trump's foreign policy. In this first question, you'll see Hillary Clinton has a pretty good detailed critique of what Donald Trump said in his big presidential foreign policy speech using the teleprompters, as I will discuss after you watch that clip. Over here.
Foreign policy. He gave a foreign policy address recently. I'm wondering if you had a chance to see it or think or read about it and what you thought.
Well, I've certainly read about it, and I think it's quite concerning. His talk about pulling out of NATO, his talk about letting other countries have nuclear weapons, which runs counter to 70 years of bipartisan national security policy. His idea that he, quote, has a secret plan to get rid of ISIS that he's not going to tell anybody. I found it disturbing, because as a senator from New York for 8 years, as Secretary of State for 4 years, I know that the stakes are high, that we face some real challenges and dangers in the world. And I don't think loose talks about loose nukes, I don't think turning our back on our strongest allies, I don't think pretending you have some sort of secret plan is a very smart way to go forward in leading the world, which is what we must do.
On some issues, it seems like he's...
So in that answer, she talked about some specifics, but I think there was also some focus group talking points. I think disturbing, the word disturbing is focus group tested possibly, and loose talk and loose nukes, those probably get people a little worried about Donald Trump's foreign policy. They worry me. They seem like if I were in the focus group, I would say, yeah, loose nukes. That kind of makes me a little worried, especially if you remember back to like Bill Maher's joke with Bobby Knight saying, Harry Truman was a great president because he bombed Japan, and Donald Trump's going to be willing to use nuclear weapons too. And Japan saying, I'm ready for Hillary, and here's Hillary Clinton kind of saying the same thing with the loose nukes comment. But I think Jake Tapper asked the more interesting question, and it's the one that you saw previously in the Donald Trump interview, and that was on Fox News Sunday, where Chris Wallace asked if Donald Trump was actually to the left of Hillary Clinton on foreign policy, because he's, so anti-interventionist in the Middle East based on, his claim that he was against the Iraq War and against Libya, and Hillary Clinton has been more interventionist, and it puts her in kind of a quandary when Jake Tapper asks her about it, because she's still running against Bernie Sanders, and so her answer, I think, is very disciplined, as usual, from Hillary Clinton over in this clip.
He's going to run to your left, on a populist left, and one of them might be the use of force and military intervention. And whether it's Libya or Iraq, what will your response be when he says Hillary Clinton is part of the group that gets us into these wars?
Well, look, I think that I'm always someone who uses military force as a last resort. It's not a first choice. As Secretary of State, I talked a lot about smart power, about diplomacy and development. So when you have somebody who says he's going to be tough and he's going to get results, but he doesn't tell you how he's going to do it, I think we'll have a lot to contrast with.
He also said that
I think that's a pretty good, quick answer from Hillary Clinton, from the standpoint of a general election between her and Donald Trump, which, as Jake Tapper was saying earlier, seems more and more likely. And I also want to show you another fairly quick answer. This is on the whole woman card issue. This is actually just about 30 seconds where Jake Tapper asks about what Donald Trump said, that, if she were a man, she would be getting 5% in the polls. And she says basically she won't respond, but then she kind of does respond over here.
That if you were a man, you would be at 5% in the polls. What did you think when you heard that?
I don't respond to his attacks on me. I think it's kind of silly. I was elected to the Senate twice from New York. I was someone who got more than 18 million votes the first time I ran. I now have 2 million more votes than Donald Trump has, more than 12 million votes to his 10. So it doesn't really square with reality.
He has taken...
So I don't know, was that a good answer? You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. I'm reading your live comments during the live stream broadcast as best I can, although it's a little hard to do during these shorter clips. But this clip is about 80 seconds long, this next one, and it's Hillary Clinton responding to another mean man attack from Donald Trump. In this one, he's doing his branding thing. I think actually Jake Tapper gets it wrong. He says that he's calling Hillary corrupt Hillary, but I think it's actually crooked Hillary is the branding that Donald Trump has come up with. And you'll see Jake Tapper ask how is she going to respond to that, and it seems almost like she's going off the rails at the very beginning of her answer, where she's talking about how I've had to deal with the bad behavior of men, basically, and you're thinking, how is is she talking about Bill Clinton? But then it becomes clear she's talking about things like the Benghazi Committee, and I think she pulls it out by the end of this 90-second or 80-second answer over here.
Taken politics to a new place with his negative branding of people, whether it's saying Jeb Bush is low energy or talking about lion Ted Cruz. And for his supporters, it's really worked. He has lately taken to calling you, I believe, corrupt Hillary, and he's had some rather personal and pointed tweets. Have you learned anything from watching the way that Republicans dealt with him in the primaries that will inform how you will deal with such an unconventional candidate?
Well, remember, I have a lot of experience dealing with men who sometimes get off the reservation in the way they behave and how they speak. I'm not going to deal with their temper tantrums or their bullying or their efforts to try to provoke me. He can say whatever he wants to say about me. I could really care less. I'm going to stand up for what I think the American people need and want in the next president. That's why I've laid out very specific plans. There's nothing secret about what I want to do with the economy, with education, with healthcare, with foreign policy. I've laid it all out there. And he can't, or he won't. I can't tell which. So we're going to talk about what we want to do for the country, and he can continue on his insult fest, but that's the choice he's making.
He will also...
So overall, I thought that was actually a pretty good answer, but there's something there that I think has to be buttoned down at the beginning there. That it sounded almost like she was talking about Bill Clinton when she talked about how I've had to deal with the, bad behavior off the reservation of men for a long time, and I think that has to be a little bit rewritten. But she's also very disciplined, and I think she could stand toe-to-toe with Donald Trump in a general election and do very well in pointing out the fallacies of his many positions. And actually, in this next clip here, I want to show how Jake Tapper asks a question that's similar to the question on foreign policy, where he asked whether Donald Trump was going to run to the left of Hillary Clinton. He shows how Donald Trump might actually be able to run to the left of Hillary Clinton on trade. And her answers, again, are very well scripted and well delivered, as I will discuss after you watch that clip, number 31 over here.
Also tried to attack you for the trade deals that he's attacked so many of his Republican rivals for. And he says he's going to try to redraw the map and compete in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan, appealing to white working class voters who feel like most favored nation status for China or NAFTA hurt them. What argument will you make to those white working class voters?
Well, look, I won Ohio. More votes than he got in Ohio. I won Pennsylvania, more votes than he got in Pennsylvania. I feel very good about where we are because I have a positive agenda to create jobs. And I've said very clearly, I will not support any trade agreement that I don't think creates more good jobs with rising incomes. That's why I'm against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's why I voted against the only multilateral trade agreement that came before me when I was in the Senate. I think that he can say whatever he wants to say, and he will, of course, but I have a track record of really helping people and standing up against China.
Do you think that the trade deals pushed forward in the 80s and 90s, ultimately some of them hurt working class voters in this country?
There's no doubt about that. And they were mixed. They helped a lot of people, and they hurt people. And one of our problems in our country is that we don't do enough for people who are hurt by trade deals. But just picture this. I was at an auto plant, a unionized auto plant, a UAW local, oldest local in the country, outside of South Bend the other day. They are making Mercedes-Benz cars to export to China. They are making the only mobile vehicle for people with disabilities to export around the world. They make Humvees. They have a broad array of products they produce. There are about 1,400 people with 3,000 more in the supply chain. So they are in the global market, but they're in it in a way that advantages America. That's what I'm looking for. We're only 5% of the population. We've got to trade with the other 95%. We just have to be smart and tough in the way we do it.
Do you think Donald Trump is qualified to be?
So, like I said, overall, I thought that was a pretty good answer from Hillary Clinton. It was disciplined. It had, like, whatever her focus group talking points were. Although there was something in there where she paused briefly and then said that the Mercedes was the only mobile vehicle for disabled people sold around the world, or I don't know, isn't every wheelchair in the world a mobile vehicle for disabled people? I think there was something missing that she forgot to say that would have made that all make sense. And I don't know, I didn't pick it up till the second or third time I saw it. I think the second time I saw it, I picked it up. So I don't know, is there something that I'm missing in what she said there? But anyway, that is the second to last clip of Hillary Clinton I'm going to show before I show the two clips of Bernie Sanders. There's one more clip I want to show after showing several clips of Jake Tapper, I thought, asking pretty good questions. I want to show him asking one question I thought was, pretty stupid. And then I want to show Hillary Clinton's answer, which she laughs in this answer. And I have to say, when she laughed in this answer, I couldn't help thinking of Bill Maher's sexist joke that I showed last week about how her laugh, she has to laugh in a way that stops making you think of someone who's trying to give you a poison apple, or some like wicked witch, or maybe it was wicked queen, the wicked stepmother, or I don't know what that was, some like negative female archetype. But she does laugh in this answer here that she gives to Jake Tapper. And the other good thing about this clip is it's where I got the thumbnail for the live stream, the Sunday Clip Roundup today. It refers to Donald Trump's wedding 11 years ago that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton attended, and there's a picture of that, and I will discuss that after you watch the last clip of Hillary Clinton for the broadcast over here.
Years ago, when you were at the wedding of Donald and Melania Trump, did you ever picture that you would be in this situation with him as the presumptive Republican nominee, you as likely the Democratic nominee, running against each other in what is likely going to be a very brutal and tough campaign?
Well, look, back then I didn't think I would run for president, so I can't speak to whatever was in his mind, but that's a good question.
But it's safe to say that sitting there watching the two get married, it never crossed your mind, someday he and I are going to face each other?
Never crossed my mind. No, not at all. Never crossed my mind.
Madam Secretary, thank you, and congratulations again.
Thanks a lot, Jake.
So, I don't know. You can let me know what you think. Was that a stupid question from Jake Tapper about, I mean, what answer did he expect to get as to whether she was thinking about whether she was going to run against Donald Trump back 11 years ago when she attended his wedding? It was kind of a stupid question. It did have the Hillary Clinton laugh, and it did have that kind of interesting... I looked at that picture several times, and then I decided I would use it for my thumbnail because I thought like Hillary Clinton looking up at Donald Trump, there was something kind of weird about that, and maybe that's what Jake Tapper was trying to get at with it. Maybe he could have asked some better question, like, what did you think of Donald Trump when you attended his wedding? Maybe that would have been a better question. But anyway, that's the last of the, was it 9 clips of Hillary Clinton I showed there, and now I'm just going to show 2 clips of Bernie Sanders. Maybe it's because this was on CBS's Face the Nation, and I try to minimize my CBS clips, or I really think about them because apparently CBS is really not very tolerant of fair use and might come after me. Although, like I said, it was only the CBS Republican debate that was so profitable for CBS and Les Moonves that they came after. But anyway, I have 2 clips of Bernie Sanders. He only did an interview on CBS's Face the Nation, so that's where I have to take the clips from. And in this first clip, you'll see that John Dickerson, the host of Face the Nation, asks Bernie Sanders to explain whether he has a path anymore to be the nominee. And along the way, I think actually Face the Nation did a pretty good job of showing both what the polls are looking like, where the remaining primaries are, and then the delegate count. And this is the clip where I promised you Bernie Sanders would argue he has to win 65% of the remaining pledged delegates, as I will discuss after you watch that clip over here.
Race, Hillary Clinton is moving closer to securing the nomination. The man still hoping to stop her, Senator Bernie Sanders, is here with us. Welcome, Senators. So right now, what is the goal of the Sanders campaign?
To win the Democratic nomination and then to win the general election. Right now, we have about 45% of the pledged delegates. There are 10 states and some other contests coming up. We think we're strong in many of those states, including California, our largest state. We think we have a chance to win the majority of pledged delegates. It's an uphill fight, I admit it. We need to win 65% of those votes. The states coming up are favorable. That's number 2. We think we can make the case to superdelegates. And there are many superdelegates now, rather incredibly, who are supporting Secretary Clinton in states that we have won 60, 70% of the vote. And we think we have the right to make the case to those superdelegates, hey, go with the majority of your state. Number two, to superdelegates in general, where she is beating us 10-1, because obviously she is the establishment candidate. Our argument is take a look at which candidate is better suited to beat Donald Trump. Every poll that I have seen, national and statewide, says that Bernie Sanders is the stronger candidate because we appeal not only to the overwhelming majority of Democrats, we appeal to independents as well. And the message, John, that we are bringing forth, that it is too late for establishment politics and economics, that we have to stand up as a people and take on the top 1% who are now getting almost all the new income and wealth. That is resonating in Indiana, where I think we have a shot to win, and around this country.
So just to make sure nobody has any misunderstanding, because there's been a lot of back and forth this week, you're fighting as hard to beat Hillary Clinton for the nomination as you ever have been in this campaign.
Absolutely.
To get there, many analysts who look at the pledge delegates just say it's mathematically impossible. Are they wrong?
Well, here it is. It's difficult. It's not impossible. We will need 65% of the remaining 10 contests, plus D.C., plus Puerto Rico, etc., to do it. Now, 65% is a pretty heavy climb. But these are states, by the way, that I think we're going to do very, very well. And California is out there. California happens to be perhaps the most progressive state in this country. They have the most delegates. It's a tough fight. But the other point that we will make again is that if the Democrats want to defeat Hillary Clinton, if they want the campaign that has the excitement, the energy, the young people, a large voter turnout, I think our campaign is that campaign.
Your campaign...
So I thought that Face the Nation did a good job there of showing the upcoming primaries and the delegate numbers, both pledged and unpledged, and gave Bernie Sanders a chance there to make his argument that he's not eliminated, that he, if he gets 65% of the delegates, which would be doing better than he has so far and is not very likely, but it's not, mathematically impossible. And there's this division between the pledged and the unpledged delegates. The super delegates are the delegates who can make up their mind at any time. And there's something kind of undemocratic about that, but I don't think the super delegates have ever made the difference between, they've never changed the outcome that would have happened if just the pledged delegates had voted. And Bernie Sanders doesn't seem to be saying he's trying to do that. And in this next question from John Dickerson, the last clip I'm going to show tonight, I think he did a pretty good job of clarifying exactly what his position is on whether superdelegates should vote for him or vote for Hillary Clinton based on, how their states voted, and what he's going to argue to superdelegates, which is kind of similar to what you've seen in terms of the economic issues, and also being the most electable candidate, as I will discuss after you watch this last clip for tonight over here.
Relies, it seems to me, very heavily on this idea of winning by superdelegates. In talking to your supporters over time before, months ago, they said superdelegates were unfair, it was anti-democratic, but now the Sanders victory march relies on superdelegates.
No, John, no, that's not the point at all. What is unfair is when I win a state by 70% of the vote, and superdelegates in that state vote for Hillary Clinton because they're part of the Democratic establishment. That's unfair. What's unfair is before I even get into the campaign, Hillary Clinton has some 400 or 500 superdelegates who are on her side. That is unfair. But it is not unfair to say to these superdelegates, to say, okay, look, do you want to defeat Trump, capture the White House, not give it over to some right-wing Republican, take a look at which candidate is better suited, according to virtually every national and statewide poll, to defeat Donald Trump. And I think I am that candidate.
And what if a superdelegate is thinking about going to you, but Hillary Clinton won their state? Presumably they should stick with Hillary Clinton.
Look, there's not a rigid rule. But I think, if you win, Hillary Clinton wins with 53% of the vote. She won Illinois by a point or two, sure. But when a candidate, whether it's Clinton or myself, she demolished us in Mississippi, I think the superdelegates should support her in Mississippi. But when in states like Colorado and in many other states, Utah, etc., we win the overwhelming majority of vote, I think those superdelegates should go with their state. And what this is really about, John, is that the American people from one end of this country to the other are asking fundamental questions about why we are the only major country on earth not to provide paid family and medical leave, not to provide health care to all through a Medicare for all single-payer program, why we have so much income and wealth inequality. The American people really do want change. And people who want change are going to come out to vote. A large voter turnout means Democrats win.
What's your response to your comment?
So that's about half of the Bernie Sanders interview on CBS's Face the Nation. You can see the other half in full on the CBS YouTube channel, CBS News YouTube channel, or CBS Face the Nation YouTube channel, I should say. I put a link down in the video description. That's why I kept pointing there while I was talking, down to the Face the Nation YouTube page, where you can see the full Bernie Sanders interview and the other half. I thought that was pretty much the best explanation from Bernie Sanders as to his strategy to try to turn superdelegates, after also explaining how he does still have a path in the first clip. So it's not hopeless, but he needs an upset in Indiana on Tuesday, and 65% of the remaining pledged delegates. It's, as he said, a big uphill climb. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section, both for the live viewers. I'm about to finish up, but you can still let me know. I'll check it out before I finish up. I appreciate the 150 or so of you who showed up for the live program, and also for if you're watching it as a recorded show. Just watching the program, giving it a thumbs up, sharing it on the internet, that all helps support my program. If you want to support it even more, you can click on this little eye up here in this corner and give me a direct donation through YouTube fan funding, or down in the video description there's a link to my Patreon page. I'm hoping to get up to $600 a month, so that I make about $150 for each of these Sunday clip roundups that take about 10 or 12 hours to prepare. So that's still right around, it's certainly not quite a $15 minimum wage, so I'd appreciate more support there, especially with some of the problems with YouTube monetization, which YouTube has been saying they made promises this week that they would, for content ID claims, they would no longer stop the money. They would actually hold it basically in escrow, and then if you win the dispute, they'll give the money. But that hasn't happened yet, so we'll see how long it takes. But anyway, I support, or I appreciate all of you who support me, however you do it, monetarily or just through commenting and sharing, or whatever it is you do. And I will try to give back to all of you by hopefully producing something other than just another clip roundup this week. Last week I did 2 different videos, including the White House Correspondents' Dinner video that I've been pimping all night, that you can see down through a link in the video description under the media topic. Otherwise, I will definitely be back next Sunday, Mother's Day, which might make me go an hour or 2 later based on whether I'm going to some brunch or something. I'm not sure, but I should be back sometime 5, 6, 7 p.m. Pacific, which is currently, I think, Greenwich Mean Time minus 7 hours. Anyway, I'll be back next Sunday, and until then, or until I upload some other video during the week, I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.